Good morning, everyone. Before I talk about the reading, let me just take a moment and say Happy Mother's Day, not just to all of the mothers here and all of the mothers watching, but to everyone. Because on our path, we tend to speak about the divine as Divine Mother. And we all have that same Divine Mother potential within each and every one of us. So let this be a day where we're looking for that. Again, not just in our earthly mothers where we can honor it, but in everyone, in each other, all day. It would be a wonderful activity, which actually really goes along beautifully with our reading. This is a fabulous reading, so much so that, as you know, Swamiji's given it 2 weeks. I don't think he does that with any other Bible reading during the year. And I was not here last week, but I did watch Ramurti's talk, so I know where he went with you last week. He did a very good job of setting the scene in Martha and Mary's home. So I won't do that very much, but I just, for those of you who weren't here, and just to sort of get us into the story, I'll just remind us that this story takes place in the home of Martha and Mary, a home that Jesus visited frequently. And I'd like to draw some analogies between this story and our own story as we're living it today. So to do that, let me just mention that the home was a home where an avatar went, where this great soul, Jesus Christ, would go and pray. And it says in the Bible, as Ramurti mentioned last week, Jesus loved them. So these are people, while not his 12 disciples, Jesus loved these people. He was very close with them, and they loved him, both Martha and Mary, and their brother, who we'll leave out of the story for today. So it was a sacred home. And we know the story, and we heard it again today. Jesus was giving a discourse, and Mary was sitting at his feet, looking up at him, really being totally present, or as present as she could be, to his vibration. And Martha was in the kitchen cooking until she decided that she was tired of being the one in the kitchen cooking, that Mary was out there getting all the great vibration and all of the great energy from Jesus, and Martha wanted to join them. So she comes out and in no uncertain terms says to Jesus, "Can't you see what my sister's doing? She's having me do all the work here," and doesn't even ask him, but says, "You tell her to come back and help me." And Jesus looks at Martha, and somehow I just feel with such great compassion, I can just hear him saying, "Martha, Martha," just with such love. "Thou art," what's the word he used? "Careful and troubled by many things." That's what he said. He said, but Mary, and I'll paraphrase the words rather than trying to find them now, but Mary has chosen the one thing that is needful. That's what she's doing, not just for Mary, but for all of us. And she's chosen that which is needful, which will not leave her. She is now doing that which, as she absorbs it, she will have it with her for the rest of her life. Now, as has been pointed out in the reading, and now you've heard it twice, Jesus didn't say to Martha, "What you're doing isn't important." And as Swamiji says here, Martha's unfortunate mistake was that she was doing it with wrong attitude. She was serving, but she was not remembering to serve in right spiritual attitude. She forgot that she was creating food for this avatar. She forgot in the midst of all of her chopping and dicing and stirring and getting irritated, to open her heart and feel the great joy of what it means to be given the privilege to serve in this way. So she was moving purely from a place of ego, and what happened? She got restless, she got agitated, she lost her calmness, she lost all sense of joy and love in what she was doing, and most important, more than anything, she put herself completely out of tune and out of reach of the divine vibration of Jesus Christ. She didn't have to be sitting in the room to have that happen. She didn't need to be with him. She could have easily been in the kitchen holding him in her heart and in her mind, just even repeating as a mantra, I am serving the divine. I am serving the divine. What joy. Do you think Jesus could not have sent his vibration all the way into the kitchen? It was probably over in some other corner of the room. But she left. And when we leave, there is no way that the divine can give us their vibration. So it was a very big mistake that she made. Now, as Swami points out, either in this reading or in his more expansive interpretation of this, she was accruing some good karma. She was, after all, cooking the meal. Somebody had to cook the meal. And we all know Jesus wasn't traveling on his own. Who knows how many people, great souls, she was cooking for. So it was good karma, but she brought it down to the level of cooking for these good people. She brought it into a more contractive place of serving on this physical plane. Just this past week in a chakras class that we're offering right now, somebody who walked in who had never been to Ananda before came to the class, and it was the second class, so he missed the whole, what are these chakras and why are we talking about them anyway? But he asked a really good question. We were talking about good karma, bad karma, and he asked at one point, why do we have to neutralize? That's the word that was being used at the time. Why do we have to neutralize good karma? And it was a very good question, actually, because in his mind, understandably, and really in Martha's mind in this story, it's good. We hear that word, we understand it with the mind. Why do we have to do anything about it? And so we had to explain to him that good karma is good, it's directional, it's helping us move energy up our spine. It means we're doing something that's magnetizing our center of Christ consciousness, but it's still karma. It's still that karmic pendulum that says, I'll do this, I'll cook this meal for Jesus and his friends, but I don't like being in here, I'm irritated about it, and I'm going to give myself room to just get a little out of shape about it. So she accrued some good karma, but that karma is going to have to find its equal and opposite, and that karma keeps us bound, in bondage with the ego. It can't do anything else. It's me preparing a meal for Jesus. It's not feeling not only that I'm doing this for God, but with God, that God is actually doing it through me. So good karma is a good thing, certainly better than that which pulls us in a downward direction, but it still keeps us in a place of duality. It's the ego speaking there. That's what was happening with Martha. Now Mary was out sitting on the floor at the Master's feet, looking up, energy raised, really trying to absorb his vibration. And that's what Swamiji was talking about today. Last week in the reading, he spoke much more about restless activity and how far off of our path that can take us. Today, he's saying, now let us look at Martha, who in this story is representing inner communion with the Lord. Now, at no point does he say one's good and one's bad. It is not the activity we do. It's the energy with which we do it. Because whenever we do anything with devotion, whatever it is we do, that act becomes purifying. It opens our heart. It doesn't matter what the action is. It could be the most mundane job in the world. There's that wonderful story. I don't remember who the saint is, but he had a disciple, and the disciple kept asking him what he should do. And over, throughout this disciple's life, the master kept saying, I want you to just be where you are and dig. Just keep digging. He had him digging gardens and holes. That's all he would do. He asked many times, Master, I'll do anything for you. You just keep digging. One day he saw an image of himself in a pond, and he had grown this long gray beard, and he was old. He realized that he was old, and he said, what have I done? I've spent my whole life digging holes. And he started to cry. But right before the tear came and could fall on the ground, his guru appeared, and he caught his tear. And the guru said to him, if a tear from one as great as you were to touch the ground, there would be disaster throughout the entire universe. And at that point, he touched him at the point between the eyebrow, and he gave him an experience of samadhi. This disciple spent his life digging in the earth. It doesn't matter. What mattered is that he was doing it with deep devotion. The whole time he was chanting, offering that activity to God. Yesterday a small group of us went out to our farm over in Half Moon Bay. We have an absolutely beautiful farm, and it was an exquisite day. If you haven't been there, please go. It is so uplifting, just such a joyful experience to be out there. It had been way too long since I had been there, and I had committed months ago to just sort of gathering a little group of people and taking them. So I had a job. So when I realized that it was the day before I was giving Sunday service, I really couldn't back out because I was the one who was going to be doing it or getting people out there. Eric and Ken actually run the farm, and they're the ones who were going to be telling us what to do. But suffice it to say, I had to be there. So I was sort of looking forward to it, but I had in my mind, I really should be home preparing this service. So before I left, I read the reading, and I went out to the farm. And at first, I was just thrilled to be there. And we were digging up calla lilies. They were so beautiful, and then we were going to take them down to the lake and plant them over there. And about 20 minutes into digging up these calla lilies, I start getting into my head. You have a service to prepare. What are you doing here? You should be at home. Whatever possessed you to come here? What time are you going to get home? Are you going to have to take anybody out to lunch? This is what I was doing in this beautiful setting. Thank God, this is all I can say, about 15 minutes into that perseverative sinkhole, I said to myself, Shanti, activity or inner communion? How about activity and inner communion? So every time I put the shovel in and I lifted up one of these very beautiful flowers, I would do a mantra. Master, I'm digging up this flower for you. Swamiji, I'm getting this one for you. Divine Mother, come and dig up these calla lilies with me. Then, when my shoulder decided it had enough digging, I walked up the hill, and Amra was up there, and she said, why don't you water around these plants? They had laid down something, doesn't matter, around the base of the plants. You can see I'm not exactly a farmer. But I just would use that water, and I said to myself, don't lose it. This is in preparation for tomorrow. There is nothing you are doing that could be any better for this. And I'd say, Master, I'm about to give you a drink of the purest, most delicious water. And I just went around hydrating all of our masters. It doesn't matter what we do. I got home. I wasn't anxious. It had been a beautiful preparation. I had, by the grace of God, remembered, other than 15 minutes when I was with Martha, suddenly I slipped out of my Martha head and into my Mary head. And that's what we need to do. Now, one of the things that strikes me about this story is how absolutely relevant it is to our particular path. It's a remarkable story. I could take it right down to the smallest detail. I was thinking, what does it mean to have a home that is so sacred that the great gurus come? And what do we have here? What is all of Ananda? It's a sacred home where the great gurus come. Well, we better be ready to welcome them. And who of us doesn't have some Martha and some Mary in them? And furthermore, are we not even supposed to? Look at who came and who is the avatar who brought these teachings. Paramhansa Yogananda, for those of you who don't know him, had a life filled with intense activity. Anybody who knows anything about Master, who's read any stories, has these great images of him flying onto a dais with his hair flying, his robes flying, going from one city to the next, teaching, serving every minute. He didn't sleep. Intense activity, but calmly active and actively calm. And then his disciple, Swami Kriyananda, who founded all of Ananda, who was told early on in his path with Master, you will have a life, this is a quote, of intense activity and meditation. Swamiji said, I don't want a life of intense activity. You will have a life of intense activity and meditation, because that's what the spiritual path is. It's a life of balance. We have to balance our inner life with our outer life. Right in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna, when Arjuna is saying, what's a better way to get to know you? Is it better to just sit here and know you, or should we find you in outer forms? And Krishna basically says, those people who could just become perfectly still and know me are so few. Find me in your activity. Find me in other people, in everyone you see, in everyone you do. Krishna says this to Arjuna. And this is what Yogananda and Swami Kriyananda have said to us. The same exact life. And then we see this this story, which is like a parable with Jesus and Martha and Mary, with Jesus representing divine consciousness, Christ consciousness, with Martha representing that active side of us, and with Mary representing the side that will dive deep for inner communion. Not activity versus inner communion, but inner communion in activity, in everything we do. That is the lesson here. That is exactly the lesson that Swami has been teaching us. We don't give up activity. How do we spiritualize our activity? How do we bring right spiritual attitude? Because really, right attitude, which by the way is, as I was saying before about good karma, right attitude, which is what Jesus was asking of Mary, what's asked of all of us, it's our stepping stone. It's not our goal. We can't confuse that. Our goal is self-realization. That's why we have to use right attitude. And a right attitude, to realize right attitude, means to realize the self ultimately. So we use that right attitude as a stepping stone towards the goal, towards Jesus, towards Master, towards being centered in Christ consciousness. We don't decide we're being too active, therefore we won't act at all. There's no spiritual growth in inactivity. You know, we had a wonderful experience a couple weeks ago. I'll let this person go nameless, though I've told a couple of you this story, so you'll know. But we have a meeting once a week over at our community. The leaders of all of our various areas get together, and it's always a very nice meeting. And we were having a discussion. The discussion got started around a question of group meditation and whether it's important to us or not. Because I had noticed that recently there were not all that many people at a couple of our group meditations. So I really raised the question, is this a problem? I didn't say we have a problem. I honestly wasn't sure. But I raised the question, is it an issue? Should we be talking about it? So the discussion went from that to these meetings that we have on Monday nights where groups of people come together and we do a book study. But we come together and we meditate and do sadhana for an hour, then we eat together, then we study a chapter in a book. And one of the people at this meeting, who several months ago, when that person heard that these meetings were going to happen, and he's a deep devotee, very strong, very well-spoken, spoke out against it and sort of directed it my way because I was the one who was manifesting these meetings. Why are we being told what to do? We have another thing to do. We're all so busy. Now if we don't go, we'll feel like we're missing something. He was right. He was making a very good point. 2 weeks ago, when we were talking about can we be at more group meditations, how can we look at the activity in our lives in the most articulate way imaginable. It was perfect. I was sick within a minute of it, that it wasn't being recorded. He started telling us, listen to yourselves. Why are we saying we're too busy? What are we busy doing? Coming together to meditate? Coming together to study a book? To enjoy each other's company? What else are we doing on this path? But he was holding it up, saying, spiritualize the activity. It's exactly what we need to be doing. And he said, I know, I was the one who was speaking against it a few months ago. That's before I realized what an extraordinary opportunity for spiritual growth it would be. But everything's an opportunity for spiritual growth. The only reason it's not is if we're sitting in the kitchen complaining. If we're doing that, then we're not growing. You know, this is that line from our festival that we say every week, though still lit on lower altars of good works, the noble taper of inner communion with the Lord burns low and is ill-attended. We can light that noble taper of inner communion moment by moment by moment. And it can be a great joy. We need to look at our friends, at our gurubhais, at our family, at our co-workers. We need to see God in them. How else do we stay close to the divine? every pot of soup that we make, every calla lily that we dig up, we just start reminding ourselves, I'm doing this with you, Master, you're here. Until we can get to the point where we actually know what it means when we say, God is doing it through us. Because that's a hard one. But until then, if we simply practice a mantra with anything you do, I'm doing this with you, God. I'm doing this with my heart open. I'm doing it full of devotion. Then we become great devotees. We've opened up our hearts so that not only can God come to us, but then we can keep our hearts open and share that energy with all the world. That's what the masters want to do. When Master decided to reincarnate, Swamiji was right there saying, I'm going to come in with you. And after Swami incarnated, we were all there saying, I'm coming too. Nobody wanted to miss out on it. Now it's our job to remember God as much as we possibly can and open our hearts and share all that we're receiving with the whole world in every moment, in every action.